MITRE ATTACK coverage looks great in a slide deck until an analyst asks one question: which alerts proved it? I have seen teams show a wall of green boxes, then fail to find a single tested detection for the behavior they claim to cover. Not because the team was lazy, because a heat map can show belief. It cannot show proof. Today's finale is about turning that picture into evidence. Every rule mapped, every claim tested, and every gap owned. MITRE ATTACK coverage is a plain English map between adversary behaviors and your defensive detections. In this terms, think of it as support for detect, analyze, and improve. Attack gives the behavior vocabulary. Your SIEM rules, correlation logic, analytics, and UEBA models are the sensors and logic that may notice those behaviors. Real coverage means three things. First, a detection is mapped to a specific technique or sub-technique. Second, the data needed for that detection is actually collected. Third, the detection has been tested with safe, benign activity and produced useful signal. Before a coverage program, most SIEM environments grow by incident memory. A phishing rule gets added after a bad week. A cloud rule gets added after an audit. An identity alert gets tuned after too many false positives. Years later, nobody can say what is covered, what is duplicated, and what only works for one narrow log pattern. Leadership sees a MITRE heat map and assumes the SOC has that territory handled. Analysts know better. They see noisy alerts in one area and silence in another. Coverage mapping solves that argument with evidence, not confidence. Start with the detection inventory. Pull every active SIEM rule, correlation search, scheduled query, and UEBA alert type. For each one, write the intended behavior in one sentence. Then map it to the closest attack technique, not the scariest technique. Be specific. If the rule only sees one operating system, one cloud service, or one identity source, record that. Next, verify the data path. Endpoint logs, identity logs, network logs, application logs, and timestamps. Then test with benign emulation approved by the business. Did the alert fire? Was the severity right? Did the analyst have enough context? After testing, remap. Green means tested, yellow means plausible. A SOC reviewed its identity detections before a tabletop. The heat map showed strong coverage for suspicious account activity. The lead picked 3 rules and asked for proof. One rule mapped to a technique, but only watched a legacy directory log. A benign emulation in the test tenant produced the expected activity in modern identity logs, not in the legacy stream. No alert fired. The team did not call it failure and move on. They changed the map to yellow, added the missing log source, and tested again. The SIEM rule caught the known pattern. UEBA also flagged the account because the sequence was unusual for that user's normal work hours and peer group. The strength of MITRE ATT&CK coverage work is focus. It tells you where detection engineering time should go. It also stops duplicate work. 5 rules for the same narrow behavior do not equal broad coverage. One brittle rule is not coverage either. If it only works for one log format, one hostname pattern, or one exact field value, call it narrow and say so. The limits matter. ATT&CK is a model, not your environment. A past test is not a lifetime guarantee. UEBA can find behavior patterns rules miss, but it still needs clean identity, entity context, baselines, and analyst review. Coverage mapping sits across the defensive stack. The SIEM is usually the system of record for rules, alerts, case context, and reporting. UEBA adds behavior analytics around users, hosts, service accounts, and peer groups. Endpoint tools add process and device detail. Network and cloud controls add their own signals. Case management records what analysts actually did with the alert. Automation can help collect test evidence and create tickets, but it should not decide coverage by itself. The key is one shared map. Each tool contributes coverage claims. The SOC verifies which claims are tested, useful, and maintained. If you are starting from zero, do not map the whole enterprise in one weekend. Export your active detections. Remove disabled and duplicate items. Assign an owner to each rule family. Pick the top techniques tied to your real risks: identity misuse, endpoint persistence signals, cloud control plane changes, data access anomalies, or whatever matches your business. For each detection, learn the basics: log source, field names, schedule, threshold, suppression, and response playbook. Run benign emulation with written approval and clear scope. Save screenshots, alert IDs, and analyst notes. Meet monthly. Change the map when telemetry, rules, or business systems change. 3 beats to close the season. First, map every rule to a real attack technique with data sources and limits attached. Second, separate believed coverage from tested coverage. A green heat map without evidence is decoration. Third, use UEBA where behavior matters more than a fixed rule, but still validate the signal. Coverage is a living map. It changes when logs change, tools change, and attackers change their behavior. If this series helped your SOC think clearer, subscribe. New Security Tools Decoded episodes land daily, plus the daily ranked CVE brief on this channel.